Let's talk about Vladimir Putin's speech at Valdai summit today. In fact, he spoke about the West, and I want us to pay attention to what he said. He spoke in the Russian language, and I will translate what he said into English for you guys. For the sake of those who don't know, Vladimir Putin spoke at a summit called Valdai Summit today, and let's go into the details of what he said. So Putin started his speech by saying, "We have already noted more than once that we live in times when everything is changing, and changing very quickly. I will say it is changing radically. At the same time, none of us is, of course, fully able to foresee the future. However, this does not exempt us from the duty to be prepared for everything that may happen." So obviously Vladimir Putin spoke the Russian language, and I'm going to translate it for you. So Putin on how the West created an enemy out of Russia. So he spoke about how the West created an enemy or sees the Russians as their enemy. Moreover, they created the familiar enemy, Russia, which was invented centuries ago. Most people in Europe cannot understand why Russia is so frightening to them, that to oppose it, they need to tighten their belts even more. Forget about their own interests. Simply give them up and pursue a policy clearly to their own detriment. But the ruling elites of United Europe continue to fuel the hysteria. Now, let's take this part again. Most people in Europe cannot understand why Russia is so frightening to them. Because when we sleep and wake up day in, day out, Russia is trying to attack NATO. Russia is trying to do this. Let's defeat Russia. Let's unite against Russia. Why is Russia so frightening to you guys? What the hell has Russia done to you? That is what Putin is asking. Now, he spoke about them also pursuing an agenda which is detriment to their own selves. So these guys will basically sacrifice their own economies just to see Russia being defeated. I mean, we've reported this several times on this channel. Help the video to go far by hitting on the like button, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe. So he also spoke about the West's attempt to defeat Russia. Listen to this. "You know how much effort our opponents have put in over the past years to, roughly speaking, knock Russia out of global system, to drive us into political, cultural, information isolation, and economic autarky. In terms of numbers and volumes of punitive measures imposed on us, which are shamefully called sanctions, Russia is an absolute record holder in world history. 30 or maybe even more various restrictions. So what? Have they achieved their goal? I think those present here do not need an explanation that these efforts have completely failed." So Putin is talking about attempts by the West to isolate Russia economically, culturally. You know, when the war began, they did everything possible to isolate Russia, but it failed completely. That is why Putin said Russia is a record holder, because I don't know any country that can withstand such amount of sanctions. Russia is the most sanctioned country on earth, and yet the Russians continue to be an important country in global affairs. Despite Uncle Sam and Western threats, the global South countries continue to trade with Russia. Nobody cares about the threats from Uncle Sam and the West. So clearly Russia is not isolated. When you look at when Vladimir Putin visited the UAE, look at how he was received. Look at Africa-Russia summit. Look at the number of African countries that attended. So clearly Putin is not isolated. So he also spoke about how some countries are taking advantage of the war in Ukraine. Putin on some countries using tragedy in Ukraine for their own selfish purpose. So some countries are benefiting from this war, right? Note, some countries are selling weapons, so they are making a lot of money. Some countries, you know, due to the Ukraine crisis, Ukraine is forced to give their resources to them. I want us to pay attention to this part. In this case, this particular country and the countries involved in this conflict, this is only a pretext and a way to solve their geopolitical attacks, expand the zone of control, and make little money from the war. Expand zone of control. So this is all about control. I've said this before, that you see, these guys attempt to bring Russia down is a message they are trying to send to the rest of us in the global south. They are trying to send a straight message to us that anybody who dares go in the direction of the Russians, this is the fate that awaits you. Now, listen to this part well. In this case, this particular country, meaning he's talking about Uncle Sam here. And listen to this part again. This particular country and the countries involved is who? That is the West. So this is stray bullet to Uncle Sam and the West. And he said they are making money. Who is selling weapons to the Ukrainians? Somebody is selling weapons to the Europeans, and the Europeans are giving these weapons to Ukraine. So you get, this is straight bullet. So when you read the whole article carefully, Putin is basically trying to say that Uncle Sam and the West continue to fuel this war. But BRICS partners want this war to end genuinely. Listen to what Putin said. He thanked all these countries who want the war to end genuinely. We are grateful to all the states that in recent years have sincerely made efforts to find a way out of the situation. These are the founding BRICS partners: China, India, Brazil, South Africa, Belarus, and by the way, North Korea. Our friends in the Arab and Islamic world as a whole, primarily Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Egypt, Turkey, Iran, Serbia, Hungary, Slovakia in Europe, and many other African and Latin American countries. Okay, so I mean, this is another straight bullet. So he's basically mentioning countries in the global south, right, and Eastern European countries. So he's basically trying to say that all these countries in the West, these guys are not interested in peace. I just love this part. No matter what potential an individual country or group of countries accumulate, every power still has its limit. Exactly. It doesn't matter how powerful you are, there will always be a limit. I just love this. What do you think about Vladimir Putin's speech? Do you think Putin is right or wrong? Let me know down in the comment section. Thanks for your endless support. Shalom. See you guys in the next episode.